How y'all doing? Want to thank, Kevin, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Will. Thank you to the whole Welcome Conference team for allowing me to be here. It is truly an honor. I'm going to start, if I can, we're going to start with some word associations. So I'm going to give you some words, and I'll ask you to take a moment and think about who is it you see when you hear these words? What kind of person comes to mind? Homeless, criminal, addict, IV drug user, unemployable. Who's that person? Maybe you pass them on the street. Maybe they're the person you are afraid of, but who is that person? And now I'm going to give you different words. And I'll ask you to do the same thing again, to imagine this person in your mind. Philanthropic, employer, sober, dad, husband. Who is that person? Who's the person that comes to mind when you think about that? What do they do? What is their life about? And the interesting thing for me is that all of those words describe me. And while they don't describe me in totality, they're what brought me to the stage today to talk to you. I want to talk to you today about a word that you've already heard about 1,000 times today. It's the word hospitality. Many of you know this word. Some of you are employed by this word. I was literally saved by this word. So in 3 chapters, I'm going to tell you about that. I grew up in Atlanta, the son of an adopted son of a doctor, and I was told I was gifted. I'm 7 years old. I was testing off the charts. I was this big at 7 years old. The coaches were all, "You're gifted." And I was like, man, I'm going to have this extraordinary life. I'm on this path. And right after that, my father got terminally ill. And my dad, you have to understand the men in my family. My dad played at Georgia. Go Dogs. Thank you. I knew there were smart people here today. You see me. My father was a bulldog. He was a doctor. He was a Korean War vet. He was my hero. He got terminally ill at 7. We moved the bed into the dining room, and he was dead by the time I was 10. My grandfather in those years, his father, had taken sort of the role of dad. He was the captain of the Georgia Bulldogs in 1930, World War II vet, a designer. If you've ever driven on the 7 Mile Bridge in the Keys, my grandfather helped design that. He was this big man. 2 weeks after my dad died, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. He smoked the Camel filters, the greatest generation. That's what they did. He was dead on my 11th birthday. And I can remember going to school 2 days later, and a teacher said to me, "You know, Steve, first your dad, then your granddad. Who's next, your mom?" And I remember very distinctly in that moment, I knew I was not as good as the other kids. Not only was I not gifted, there was something severely wrong that everybody in my life started dying. And I found alcohol. And, you know, a lot of alcoholics, when you hear their story, they say, well, there was this period of social drinking, and then it got bad. The first day I ever drank alcohol, I was an alcoholic. The first day I poured it into the tennis can, emptied out the balls, poured the liquor in the can, ran to the woods. And by then, all bets were off. I had so much pain, I was in so much trauma that I found the one thing that could take it all away, and that was alcohol. By the time I was 13, my mother had had a nervous breakdown. I was thrown out of the house. I was living in an abandoned home in Midtown Atlanta. I was sticking needles in my arm. And in a period of about 6 years, I had gone from gifted to homeless. And I knew that I wasn't as good as everybody else. I knew that there was something wrong with me. And then I found the restaurant business. I was 13, I was washing dishes at Yin's Chinese, making $3 an hour. But I found what I didn't know in that moment. I found the industry that would save my life. I ended up in Charleston, South Carolina. I had been a line cook, a pretty bad one for the chefs in the audience. You would have fired me. But I was a pretty good waiter, and I met my first mentor. I had what I called my first light bulb moment. You know, a light bulb moment comes out of nowhere. It really defies definition, but it changes the way we see something. It inspires us. It invites us to dream bigger. And I met my first mentor, and this was in 1991, before the internet, before Top Chef, before foodies, before Instagram, before Will was being unreasonable. And he said to me, Steve, people go out to dinner to have an experience. If they wanted to eat, they would just stay home. And that was at 22 years old. You know, I was like, oh my God, I can do this. And I realized that by serving others, I felt an immense amount of satisfaction. And back in those days, there weren't career waiters. It was, I'm just doing this till I get a real job. And I'm like, man, I'm working 16 hours a day. My legs hurt. This feels pretty real to me. But I felt honored to serve. We got to be at the front row of other people's most intimate moments, their first date, the we haven't seen friends in forever moment, the divorce party, the date that led to the divorce party. And we're there, you know? And I just felt so honored to be a part of that. And that was the moment for me that I knew that I would spend the rest of my life serving other people. And, you know, the thing that I love about hospitality is everybody is welcome. It doesn't matter where you grew up. It doesn't matter if you have money, college degree. It doesn't matter. If you're willing to work hard and be a part of a team, there's a place for you. And I realized that at 22 and at 54, it's still true today. And we have a saying in the Indigo Road that everyone is welcome at our table, even the people we disagree with. Novel concept these days, isn't it? And I love hospitality. There's nothing more that gives me joy than serving others. So this is the second chapter of my story. Hospitality is tough love. In 2001, on November 5th, I was running a restaurant in Charleston called Peninsula Grill. It was Relais Chateau, 5-star. My career had blossomed. I had found acceptance. And even though I had found a group of people that loved me no matter what, of course, we also found a group of people that accepted going out to dinner, drink, and drugs 7 nights a week. And hospitality in the restaurant business, for so long, we take care of other people, but we have absolutely no idea how to take care of ourselves. None. Night after night after night, I never met a drug I didn't like. And I thought, here's the thing about the disease of addiction, I thought nobody knew. And that's the thing about addiction. It's the only disease that tells you don't have a disease. If you think about that, have you ever met a cancer patient that said, no, I'm good? But you meet addicts and alcoholics every day who say, I'm fine, nothing to see here, just a little stressed out. And so while on one hand I had found this industry that I loved, my career was progressing and progressing, on the other hand I was dying inside. I was trying to fill the hole of the trauma of my childhood with drugs and alcohol as fast and as hard as I could. And on November 5th, 2001, I got the second light bulb, and I got one of the greatest gifts of my life, and that was the gift of desperation. You see, when you get the gift of desperation, you're willing to do anything to change your life, to be better. I was laying on the floor in Charleston and I was shaking because I was going through DTs. I was physically addicted to alcohol. I had to drink to shave. I could no longer function on a daily basis. And I was laying on the floor and I cried out loud. I said, God, unless you physically put me where I can't get to alcohol, I'm gonna die. There's nothing alcohol had won. It's bigger than me, it's larger than me. There's nothing I can do to stop this. 2 days later, I went to work and the owner of the restaurant said, Steve, you have a choice today. You can clean out your office or you can go to rehab because we're not gonna watch you kill yourself. We love you too much. And hospitality was two people caring for me when I couldn't care for myself. And I went to rehab with absolutely no idea how it was gonna work. In 2001, in our industry, we were not talking about mental health. We were not talking about anything. And I began the journey of sobriety. And it was lonely, I'll be honest. If you were in the sober community in those days, you would say, the restaurant industry, you gotta get out of that if you're gonna get sober. And in the restaurant industry, you would go, you're not gonna drink? No way. So I was in this kind of in-between place, and I remember my first night back to work, a server ran up and handed me a bottle of wine, said, can you go open this on table 5? I was like 6 weeks sober. I freaked out, I ran outside, I ran up on the roof and said, I can't do this. And in that moment, just one word, the word surrender came to me. And I knew in that moment that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I knew that every moment, every trauma, every experience that had happened to me prior had brought me to this moment. And I went downstairs and began falling in love with hospitality in a way that I could never possibly have imagined. The last chapter of my story is hospitality is giving back and Ben's friends. So in 2009, I was laid off like a lot of folks. And I was hiking in North Georgia and I was sitting by a waterfall. I was writing in my manifest journal, what did I want to do? I was about to turn 40. Like, I got a pretty good resume, I'll get a job, but I wanted to do something more than just earn a paycheck. And I wrote, I want to impact those in this industry. And I had absolutely no idea what that was about to mean. But then I wrote, I want to start my own restaurant and hotel company in Charleston, South Carolina. And 10 minutes later, the phone rang. And it was my next light bulb. It was a man, Michael Meyer, who has become my partner in all 36 of our restaurants over the last 15 years. And he said, I've got this restaurant that's broken. Can you come help me? And over the last 15 years, we got relentless about the word culture. What does it mean to care for other people? And we decided, much like Danny Meyer and those before us, that in order for the guests to have a great experience, our employees must first have a great experience. Amen to that. And my mind is a restless one. My mind is curious. And I was like, okay, we're going to be nice. Revolutionary, but it is revolutionary and it's sad. But we hire so many people that are like, I was ready to give up on this industry. I'd been treated so poorly and then I found y'all. But I was like, we got to do more. We started a home loan buying program where we said, we're going to give our employees the down payment to their home. We're going to give it to them. The only requirement is you've been employed for 2 years. We're going to give it to them interest-free. They have 3 years to pay us back, and we make nothing on it. Happy to say we've helped so many people buy a home because of that. Thank you. And then I said, well, we need to pay for mental health, right? So we provide free mental health for 2,000 employees. We made it. I didn't know this was going to turn into this. This is good. Keep it coming. This is good. You know, we did little things. The shift drink, right? Everybody knows about the shift drink. We sit at the end of the bar. We all start to drink together while we're still on the clock, on the company's dime. And I just was like, if we're gonna make this industry better, let's get addictive stuff off the clock. So we don't drink. We talk at lineup at our pre-services about it being okay to not be okay. We're constantly communicating a message that we're here if you need us. But that wasn't enough. I was like, you know, there's gotta be more. And I didn't know what it was, and it was about to come to me in a manner that was quite tragic, but I'll get to that in a minute. We started Hospitality U. So our employees can apply to college. They can write their own curriculum about what they want to learn, what they want to do. They get nominated by their coworkers, and they all come to Charleston and they learn from a bunch of other smart people. I happen to be in attendance as well, but they learn from the most senior people in our company how beautiful hospitality can be. But I kept thinking there had to be something else. And before I get to that, I want to tell you about Ben Murray. Ben was a friend of mine that helped me open a restaurant. He's a chef. He worked here at John George. He moved to Atlanta. We opened a restaurant called Canoe, nominated for Best New Restaurant in the United States, all those things. I hadn't seen Ben in a while, and Ben came to me and said, hey, I hear you're opening a restaurant. Could you use some extra hands? We are short-staffed. We will be short-staffed for the rest of our lives. And I was like, sure, Ben, come on. I mean, it's like, you know, guys, lower your expectations about staffing. But believe in the people you have, treat them as well as you can, and know that, I don't know if that day is ever coming, but Ben walked in and said, I've cleaned up my act. I'm here to help. And you know, in our business, it's a pretty wide range of I cleaned up my act. I didn't ask any questions. I never saw Ben take a drink. You know, it was an opening. 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Ben had a smile. Ben was helpful. Ben went to his hotel room and shot himself. And the sad thing about that moment is there were 3 sober chefs, one of whom is in the audience today, who would have done anything to help Ben if he would have just said, I don't know how to do what you're doing. Can you help me? As I called his 80-year-old mother to tell her what happened, and I can remember I was in the hospital in the emergency room, and you know, I'm not family, so they couldn't, and the nurse just cried and said, Ben's no longer here. And I knew what that meant. And I called his mom, and he said, Steve, Ben's been in and out of detox 6 different times, but he would never go to those meetings. And I had no idea. We had no idea. So I called my friend Mickey Baxt, another sober restaurateur in Charleston, and I said, we have to do something. The opioid crisis is coming, like, we've got to do something. So we decided we would start a support group in Charleston called Ben's Friends. And we thought it'll be a little local 1-hour thing for sober people, run by sober people. Help the people in the industry get sober with people that have already gotten sober. 6 months later, Anthony Bourdain killed himself. And overnight, the New York Times, the LA Times, what's Ben's Friends? Forbes asked me to write a book, so I did. It's called Say Grace. Grace, sidebar, grace is my favorite word. A gift freely given without expectation of return. It's also, if you live in the South, it's what you say before you eat supper on Sunday. You say grace. So I wrote this book. It went to #1 on Amazon, which was bizarre. All the proceeds go to Ben's Friends. And overnight, chefs started calling. Hey, I'm sober. I'm in Portland, Oregon. I'll do a Ben's Friends. I'm proud to say that there are over 24 Ben's Friends in America right now, from New York to California. We have 20 Zoom meetings a week, 11 o'clock at night meeting, women's meetings, men's meetings. We have people from Italy, Spain, and London now dialing in. And all I keep thinking, I mean, and like suddenly, like sobriety, like we're the cool kids now. Like every drink list has a mocktail. We don't, by the way, we don't like that word. Spirit-free feels much better. When you're mocking somebody, that's not good. That's hospitable. We're like the cool kids now. And I will say this, I love my day job. There's 2,100 employees in the Indigo Road who are the most beautiful souls who have all bought into, let's take care of our each other first. Let's take care of the community that we operate businesses in. And I love my day job. It is, if you would have said to me 23 years ago when I was shaking and hallucinating and my liver was failing that I would be standing here in front of you, there is no way. But the thing that I am most proudest of is Ben's friends. And I will tell you this, when you see somebody who has lost the hope in their life, who's given up, and they wander into a Ben's Friends meeting, and they may not know anybody there, but they know that's a line cook, that's a bartender, that's a dishwasher, and they feel safe. And to then see that same person a year later with hope and purpose and dreams. And I know the word purpose has been mentioned a lot today. There is nothing I will ever do that is more meaningful than that. Giving people hope back transcends business. It transcends everything that I could ever hope to be. I have no idea. So many of my friends are dead. I have no idea why I'm alive, let alone, the founder of this hospitality company, let alone being able to give back. But Simon Sinek, who you've heard on the stage, who wrote the great book, Find Your Why, my why is in order to experience life more abundantly, I will vigorously give it to others. And I get asked a lot, what can we do? When we have a friend struggling, when we have somebody that's in crisis, and the first thing I always say is have the conversation. I will tell you, if you come at it from I think you're drinking too much, probably not gonna go very well. Remember, it's the disease that tells you you don't have a disease. But if you come at it from a place of love, I care about you and I'm scared, I'm concerned. You may not have any effect, but know this, when the fourth person has a conversation with them, you might have planted a seed. We're always available, www.bensfriendshope.com. There's literally somebody available 24 hours. All you have to do is hit one click and you'll be connected with a sober person. It is the privilege of my life to serve others. And I had no idea how rich life could be by serving other people. And isn't that the basis of hospitality? Maya Angelou famously said, people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is, this industry has made me feel seen, loved, welcome, and accepted. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.